Welcome to the Unconditionally Worthy podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Adia Gooden, a licensed clinical psychologist who believes deeply that you are worthy unconditionally. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Unconditionally Worthy podcast. I'm really excited to bring this episode to you today. I am joined by Deslynne Roberts, who is one of my former group coaching members. She was in the January 2022 cohort, and I'm just so excited to talk with her about her experience in the program. Deslynne is a licensed therapist, right? So she has a lot of experience going to her own therapy, being a therapist, supervising other therapists, and she still got so much out of the program. And so she really shares some highlights about how she benefited from the program, some of the meditations, some of the exploring her own self-worth journey, learning to be more gracious and compassionate with herself. She shares about those things and also talks about the benefits that she's seen in her own life in terms of how her day-to-day life feels better. She's not overworking as much. She's taking better care of herself, right? And she's, gotten the job that she was looking for and wanted and negotiated the salary that she wanted. So I think this episode really highlights the benefits of the Unconditionally Worthy group coaching program. So I'm really excited for you to hear about it directly from one of my former group members. The enrollment and applications for the group coaching program are open now. If not, they'll be open very soon. I think they'll open starting on around September 21st. So if you are considering joining the Unconditionally Worthy group coaching program, definitely listen to this episode so you can kind of get a sense of whether or not it seems like a good fit, and then go ahead and complete the application. The link will be in the show notes, so you can apply. And I think it's unconditionallyworthy.com/program. And I'd love to have a conversation with you. Once you apply, I'll let you know if it seems like you'll be a good fit, and we'll set up a consultation call to talk about whether or not this seems like it will be the right program for you. So I'd love to have a conversation with you if you're considering it. I'm really proud of this program and what it offers to people, and would love for you to be a part if you're interested. So check the link in the show notes. Also, feel free to DM me on Instagram at Dr. Adia Gooden if you have questions about it. If you're not sure, I'm happy to engage with you there even before you apply. So let's get into the show. I'm really happy to welcome Deslynne Roberts to the podcast today. Deslynne is one of my former group coaching members. She was in the last cohort of the Unconditionally Worthy group coaching program. And so I'm really excited to have this conversation with her today. Deslynne is a licensed clinical social worker in Indiana and Illinois. She is a British national of Caribbean descent and now lives in the U.S. Deslynne currently provides clinical leadership and clinical oversight to experienced and early career clinicians for a nationwide social services organization. She is also the founder and owner of Embodied Therapeutic Services, LLC, a private practice focused on therapeutic services, consultancy, with a focus on bringing the mind, body, and spirit in balance for optimum mental and emotional wellness. I love that. In her spare time, Deslynne enjoys cooking, walking, yoga, exercising, traveling, and she is a lover of curry and roti infused with the sweet sound of calypso music and cool island vibes. That sounds fabulous. So welcome, Deslynne. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me, Dr. Adia.
Awesome.
Great to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to start our conversation where I start all of my conversations with guests on the show, which is by asking you to share a bit about your own self-worth journey.
Okay. I've always been intrigued with personal development. So from a really young age, I would say in my early 20s, I was really engaging in, self-development activities. And that just evolved over time. I've always been a good listener. I've always been very much present to talk about a lot of deep things. And that led me to my own journey in therapy and uncovered a multitude of things, which as it does. But over the last few years, since the pandemic hit, I realized that there was this repeated sense of dissatisfaction that I felt within myself. I didn't feel that I was fulfilling my life's journey in various different ways. So 2020, I went on a self-love retreat to Arizona. And that was following a traumatic period in my life. And that was really good. It helped me to uncover, it helped me to heal, it helped me to think more about myself and loving of myself. But it lasted for a short time. And I then discovered that, there was that dissatisfaction was still there. So December is my month when I sit, I reflect, I review, I manifest, I vision cast for the following year. And for 2022, I wanted a new job. I knew I wanted to relocate to a new state, and I had already started the job search. And there was this company that I found that I was going to apply for. And I do my research. I looked at the website and everything, and I came across this Black lady, Dr. Adia, who had done a presentation there. And I thought, oh, let me see what's going on here. So I looked at the website, I listened to the TED Talk, and I was like, this is it. This is what I need. I value therapy, but I've always toyed with the idea of coaching and do I need a coach or do I need a therapist? So I did the self-worth assessment, and it revealed everything that I was experiencing. And I just thought, yeah, this is what I need for 2022 to take me forward. So that's where I landed. That's how I came across the Unworthy podcast and the coaching program. And so I've always been on a journey of self-worth and self-discovery and, doing better for myself. It's always been present for me.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And, I love that you sort of talked about, you've been working on this for a while. And I think the way self-worth journeys often go is that you sort of get to a place where you're like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good. And then another sort of layer peels back and you're like, oh, there's actually more work to be done there. And that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you or you haven't done good enough work. It just means that we sort of get to these different layers at different times in our lives. And I think you also highlighted how different things have been supportive of your journey at different times, right? So therapy has been helpful. Right. The self-love retreat was helpful. And you still felt like, okay, I need something else that's going to kind of maybe take this to a different level or really get at the core of this dissatisfaction that I'm feeling.
Right. Absolutely. And I think it's just amazing what I discovered through this process. And as a mental health professional, therapy is great. It deals with one thing, but this just gave me a little more depth to understanding who I was and what I need to really focus on as I continue in life. So
yeah. Can you talk a little bit more specifically about what the program helped you to uncover or discover about what would be helpful in terms of your own journey and personal growth?
Yeah, I think first of all, it really highlighted the hurts that can emerge in childhood through the many different environments, systems that we engage in. And the first module was really taking you to that place where you had to look at your inner child. And I've heard about inner child work, and I did a little bit on the self-love retreat, and it was very revealing. But at points in my childhood, my adolescent, my youth years, those were the hallmarks of where my self-worth was impacted. So that was a great place for me to actually start. It was scary. It just made me really think. And I remember writing my self-love story, and tearing up and thinking, wow, this is why. There were other things that emerged for me through that process, and how religion, having been brought up in a faith-based home, being part of a religious organization, how those factors contributed to hurts, and where I would say your self-worth is challenged or framed through those frameworks. And as you traverse through years, that changes, and it's changed for me quite a bit. So that chapter was great. That was the foundation, and that helped me to really look at where it was all coming from. I really enjoyed the bit where we had to challenge that. We had to counteract those messages, those negative messages that we heard. And as we went throughout the program, each module really helped you move closer and closer to a better understanding of yourself. There was one module that really aligned with my spiritual self, and really looking at you as a baby, that child. How would you speak to that baby and that child? And it just took me back to scripture, fearfully and wonderfully made. We were perfect. Yeah. And I think that was really the turning point for me. I loved the meditations, and I really connected with the meditations around forgiveness and self-compassion. And as I'm speaking, I'm getting goosebumps. Those were the ones that I needed to really heal and accept me in all entirety. So I use it a lot. And, it does bring me to tears. But what I've loved about those meditations and I've taken away from that, is that it's okay. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to feel a bit yucky today. It's okay. Just be gentle with yourself. And I hear myself saying, okay, Des, it's okay. Yes. It really is. It's not that bad. So those meditations have been really transformative for me. There was another one that again really spoke to me, and that was when I wrote my vows, the vows to myself. And again, it was very deep and very emotional, but it was affirming, and it was really setting me in that position whereby I could stand tall and say, this is what I'm going to do for me. This is my commitment to you, Deslynne. So there were so many nuggets in there. And what I also love is that I'm a bit linear, and I actually make sure I do the stuff so I can engage. But it's there to go back to. It's there that I can revisit. And at every module, there is an affirmation piece. There's a quote that is used that helps to shape that. The one that I love and who I love is Brené Brown, amongst others. And her statement, loving ourselves through the process of owning our own story, is the bravest thing we could ever do. Always speaks to me. Always speaks to me. And I think that's what this self-worth coaching program is. It's loving yourself and embracing all the yucky pieces, being brave through it, navigating through it. And when you come to the end, you see a different you, you experience a different you, and you have an opportunity to go back and reshape and reaffirm and dig a bit deeper into your own self. So the program is priceless for me. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing it. It brings so much joy to my heart, because, that's why I created it. I created it to be really helpful to people. And it's so kind of wonderful to hear the pieces of the program that you found really helpful. You sort of mentioned there's one of the sort of later modules where you're guided to write vows to yourself, as you would like write vows to a partner that you're going to marry. You write them to yourself, and it's about learning to love yourself and embrace yourself and commit to loving yourself, as you described. Yeah. And you're also talking about some of the other resources that I have, which is meditation. So each module comes with a meditation. So there are lessons and videos and worksheets, and then there's a meditation, so that for those people who want to just kind of hear and meditate on the message, then you can use that. You can download it. You can use it at any time. And you also talked about where we start, which is uncovering your self-worth story, right? And it is kind of painful to go back and say, well, how did I get to this place where I don't feel satisfied with myself, or I feel like something's wrong with me, or I feel like everything I do is not right? I feel like I'm not good enough. How do I get there? Because often we can look at the outside of our life and say, well, this was going pretty well, or I have a good job, or I have friends. And so I don't understand what's wrong with me. Why do I even think this way or feel this way? And it really is powerful to go back and say, well, what were the things that happened throughout my life? And what were the messages that I was given that really led me to some of these negative thoughts about myself and negative beliefs about myself? And you also use the word healing. And I don't think I sort of talk about that element of the program probably enough, that it is really like the practices that you are guided through are really healing. They help you to heal from wounds of the past. And it doesn't replace therapy, right? There, as you're saying, I agree, like we're both therapists and believe in the power of therapy, and believe that therapy can be really important on your healing journey. And there are a lot of elements in this program that are structured around helping you heal in a focused way. Because sometimes in therapy, you sort of go in and you're like, I'm having a hard day. And, you may not always know how to connect that to something deeper going on. And it may be that you just need a little bit more structure and focus of like, you're going to focus in on this thing. It's hard, but let's talk about this specific thing. And that's part of what the program offers.
Yeah. And that piece about focusing, as a mental health professional, it made me reflect on the work that I do with clients and how they come into therapy with a diagnosis, and we're designed to treat the diagnosis. But when you really look at the diagnosis, there's depth to that. It started from somewhere. So that self-worth piece just helped me just say, that's what some of our clients need, to really understand and connect the dots between what happened in childhood and what's brought you to here now. And, the population I work with is children and adolescents. And I just kept thinking, they could, if they had a tool like this to help them really understand, yes, their minds might not be at that place to really absorb it, but it's so powerful, and it's great.
Well, I love that you're now in this role of shaping, the clinical practice and mentoring people and helping this organization, because you can incorporate some of these themes and some of these ideas and some of these practices into the work that you're doing and that all these other clinicians are doing to support young people. Because wouldn't it be wonderful if more of us knew we were worthy when we were young and didn't have to go through the years of struggle and questioning ourselves? Like, wouldn't that be beautiful? So I hope that you'll, there are things that you'll carry from your experience in the program into the work that you're doing as you impact so many people, overseeing the clinical services for your organization.
Yeah. Yep. I hope to make sure that that's part of what I do.
Yeah. Well, you sort of touched on this a little bit, but I'd love for you to kind of talk just a little bit more about maybe some differences that you notice in terms of your experience of life, your feelings about yourself, your day-to-day experience before the program, before you did the work in the program, and then kind of how you're experiencing things now. So I heard you say that you're more gracious and compassionate with yourself now. Talk about how that impacts you. Like, what's the difference? And then how does that impact your day-to-day to be more kind and compassionate with yourself?
I'm the sort of person who likes to do things well. And doing things well means that I might overcompensate in some areas. I might stay up late and work on a task. I might work long hours. But discovering and being more compassionate with myself is actually giving me that space to say, stop, take some time out, And it's okay to just do enough. It doesn't need to be 100% all the time, but think good enough might just give you that peace. And I think about situations when I've got deadlines to meet at work, and I'm diligent with my work and I want it to be just so, but my body's telling me no. And I've had to actually take a step back and say it's okay to just do enough. And I'm surprised how I'm able to show up having not done what my mind's telling me I should be doing, and still deliver and still have the same results. So that has been useful. Before, I would always think that the problem was me. And I've learned through this process to think about it in different ways. Think about the fact that the problem isn't you. You might just need to just change the way you see this. Think about what you need and ask for what you want, and recognize that you deserve it. I think that's the biggest thing that's really come out of it for me. And, finding a new job and negotiating a salary, which is a bit scary, but actually aligning that with an understanding that you have years of experience, you have the aptitude, you can do this, and you're worth this amount of dollars. And that has been really useful. I've gone into interviews and said what I want, scary as it is, and got it. So that was a part of the self-worth. In relationships as well, being able to attach value and worth to what I'm asking for, what I desire, the time I want to spend with people. There's been moments where I've had to make some hard decisions about friendships and say, this is not helping me. The person's not bad, but this is not allowing me to flourish. It's not allowing me to enjoy life. So we need to just have a different kind of relationship, one that's not impacting my emotional space and taxing. So this journey has helped me to really own my worth and demonstrate that in very, very different ways. But also to just be gentler with myself and not so hard on myself. I remember friends used to always say, Des, you're so hard on yourself. And I never understood what it was. But now I do. Now I know that, my self-worth was aligned to aspects of criticism or expectations, family values. And it's now allowed me to recognize that those are things that shaped me, but they don't always define me. I don't need to live by those all the time. I can taper them somehow and still be okay. So what I think, I'm emerging into a more compassionate and a more gracious self.
You won't break my soul. You won't break my soul. I am so excited to invite you to join me for my free You Won't Break My Soul challenge. This is a 5-day self-worth challenge inspired by songs from Beyonce's latest album, Renaissance. In this free challenge, you will learn how to get free from conditions you've placed on your worth, how to love yourself and get comfortable in your skin, and how to claim your greatness and unconditional self-worth. The challenge will take place from Monday, September 19th through Friday, September 23rd. We'll meet every day on Zoom where I'll be teaching and coaching you on making sure that nothing and no one can break your soul. This challenge is going to be fun, uplifting, and empowering. So if you want to make sure that your soul is unbreakable, secure your spot now by going to unconditionallyworthy.com/challenge. And remember, it's free. Be sure to invite a friend. The party is always more fun when there's more people. I cannot wait to see you there. Yeah, it's so wonderful to hear. And I hear a few things in what you're describing. One is taking better care of yourself and honoring what your body needs, right? Sort of maybe even noticing that your mind's tendency to push you to overwork, probably coming from a space of anxiety of like, you've got to over prepare, you've got to overdo it so you won't make any mistakes, right? And noticing like, actually, if I slow down and trust my body and trust that I've done enough, that I know enough, that I'm prepared enough, and I let myself get rest and I let myself, shut it down for the night and I sleep, then I, go in the next day and actually do just as well. I don't know, maybe better, right? Because I'm coming from this rested, grounded space rather than up all night, tired and wired and like, okay, like stressed about making any type of mistake. And so.
And that's huge for me. That is huge for me, and particularly in the role of leadership. That is something that I've valued so much about, just being okay with doing enough and not doing any more. So that has been really transformative for me.
And I imagine that work feels so much better that way, right?
I can smile. I don't feel stressed. That high functioning anxiety piece that comes with performance and, what everyone's going to look, what it's going to look like. How am I going to show up? I just show up and let the chips fall where they do. And when I make a mistake, I'm like, okay, it's okay. And I speak to it and it's okay.
I mean, one of the things we worked on in the program is values, right? And using your value to guide you and guide how you show up versus the anxiety. Because for so many of us, myself included, for years, the high functioning anxiety was the guide versus what are my values? How do I want to show up? What impact do I want to have on my employees or my clients? And it feels so much better to have that be your guiding light versus the anxiety and that it has to be perfect. And I'm just also thinking about what a wonderful model you are to your employees, right? That you're modeling, you don't have to overwork to succeed here. You don't have to be perfect to succeed here, right? You can do good work. You can do enough. You can make mistakes and learn from them. And that creates such a safe, supportive environment for yourself and for your employees, which I think is just going to have ripple effects, because I think we've all been in environments, work environments, I certainly have, where you feel like it's got to be perfect. You've got to overwork. You've got, you know what I mean? And that really gets set from the top down.
For sure. I can speak loads on that, but yes.
So I mean, I think it's wonderful. And I'd like to think that it's not a coincidence that you got, the job that you really wanted in the place that you really wanted with the salary that you wanted after doing this type of work. I don't think that's a coincidence.
I don't either. And I interviewed midway through the SelfWorth Journey, and I don't think it was a coincidence at all. So,
I just, I love having these conversations. And I think it's also really wonderful to have the conversation with you because you're in this mental health and wellness world. And so, I think a lot of people do think, well, I'll go to therapy and that's enough, right? Like, and for some people, therapy might be enough, right? But I think for the people who really want to dig deeper or maybe go to another sort of level in their growth journey, I think often therapy is about managing symptoms, right? Therapy is about, okay, you have a diagnosis, as you said, you have anxiety, you have depression. How do we help you manage those symptoms so that you can move throughout your life and function well and survive? Maybe you might get to thriving, but mostly it's like, how do you manage your symptoms? How do you cope with depression? How do you cope with anxiety or other things, right? Some of it can be, how do you heal from trauma? Right. And sometimes there are therapists who move beyond that point to what does it look like to thrive? What does it look like to fully embrace and engage in your life? There certainly are therapists who do that. And I think probably not enough therapy is focused on what's the next level, right? We're not just wanting to manage symptoms, right? Like we want to do that, but we want to move beyond that. And I think this program
Yes.
helps people to do that.
Mm-hmm. I do too. It's an investment for sure, but it's an investment in yourself that is invaluable to get in a better connection to who you are. So yeah, I think it does all of those things.
One of the things that you shared was that it was hard at times. And I think that's something that I hear from all the group members, right? Like, this is hard, right? And I hear what I get from it. Hopefully I'm right. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong, but it's good hard, right? It's that type of like, you're in a hard workout, right? And you know, ooh, my muscles, like this is painful, but I know that this is strengthening me, right? It's that type of hard, not like painful for the sake of being painful, but painful as part of the healing and growth process. And I wonder kind of what your experience was of that. And also what encouragement might you offer to someone who's on their own self-worth journey and finding it challenging or finding the work difficult?
Well, the first thing is you got to be patient with yourself. You recognize the depth that you're going and be patient with yourself. I think it's very much about just recognizing that there are facets in our lives that we do need to peel back that onion skin and just have a look a bit deeper. You know, if you want to go there, that is. But being patient and gentle with yourself is how I dealt with it. So when things were a bit too much, I stopped and just gave myself a breathing space and just returned. And some of it wasn't complete, but the pieces that I was able to work on were transformative and revealing. So I would encourage anybody who is cautious or worried about the depth. It's not a scary place to go in, because what I also enjoyed is that throughout the coaching program, as we unfolded each module, all of the participants were feeling the very same thing. So that you were in a safe space. You were able to hear other people's journey. You were able to affirm them. You were able to validate your own journey. And there was that piece of alignment that came with each module. So there is going to be personal pieces outside of the coaching program that, you know, might be a bit hard. But what I saw throughout is the growth, not only within myself, but everyone else, as we started to allow ourselves to release a little bit at a time and be part of that sharing space. So you're not in it on your own. You're not walking this journey on your own. And Dr. Adia does a great job of validating each person's story and each person's experience and aligning it back to the module. So I would say it's going to be okay. It's not scary. It feels scary, but in practice, it's quite comforting.
Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, sort of as you mentioned, right, like you can keep going back to the lessons, to the modules, to the resources. You know, everybody gets lifetime access to it. And part of the reason I do that is because I want this to be an ongoing resource. And I really try to set up all of the teachings as practices, right? Not, right, like for those of us who are kind of high achieving, accomplish oriented, which is most of the people in the program, myself included, I really try to shift away from an achievement orientation within the program, shift away from, I didn't do my homework. I didn't do, you know, I'm falling behind, right? And into, you are where you are, right? Like some people are going to go more slowly and some people are going to go more quickly through the modules and the lessons and the program. Some people are going to show up every week and they're just not going to have a lot of time to dive into the lessons. That's also okay, right? So letting people go at their own pace and knowing that these are practices. This is a way of being that you're developing versus something you're trying to race to the finish line and achieve and accomplish. I also so love that you mentioned the group aspect, because the group aspect is not an afterthought, right? Like it is not well, it's just easier for me to do all of this in a group and not do it one-on-one. The group aspect is actually part of the healing. It's actually part of the intervention, right? I have been trained in doing group therapy. This is not group therapy, but I've been trained in doing group therapy and have seen how effective and powerful a group is. And it's because of some of these things you just shared, which is you see that you're not alone. Because it's one thing for a therapist or a coach to tell you, you're not the only one who experiences this. I have lots of clients who experience this, but you say, yeah, you're just telling me that, right? That's sort of the response. But when you hear someone else's story or you hear someone else's experience and you see the beauty and the humanity in them and you see the worthiness in them and you see that they're also struggling and then they see it in you, there's just some magic that happens, right? There's some connection and joining and wow, I really am not alone. Right? Like it's a felt sense versus somebody telling you you're not the only one. It's experiencing I'm not the only one. And then there's also this beautiful thing, as you said, which is you get to affirm other people and encourage other people. And then you receive that. You learn to receive it from others. And that is part of what helps, right? Like receiving that support and connection is also so important for your self-worth journey and for getting to a place of embracing like, I am really worthy. And so it's not, I haven't constructed this as a group program just because like, oh, well, then I can put a bunch of people in together and it's just easier for me. It's actually an intentional part of the program. And I really think that the program would not be as powerful if it was done individually versus in a group. What are your thoughts about that?
I absolutely agree. There, you know, I am that person who did all the homework because I needed to prepare. But halfway through, when work pressures and life was just saying, take me away, I felt okay to do that. But I did notice there was intentionality in each module, intentionality about bringing us all together to share our stories, to really reflect on what's changed. What did that module say and do and feel for you? So that intentionality is there. And whilst it might not have that therapeutic air, it does have that component of the healing and the restorative piece and the validation piece. So I agree. It's the intentionality is there, and you then become intentional about what you do with the material. You become intentional about how you think about your own self-worth, how you look at all the facets of your life and how those things collide, and you know, the things that you want to move away from. So intentionality is a good word to describe the program for sure.
Thank you for saying that. So I think this is going to be my last question. If somebody is listening and they're kind of like, this program sounds like it could be what I need, or it could be a good fit, but I'm not sure and I'm apprehensive. What might you say to them?
Well, first of all, if they haven't listened to the TED Talk and haven't done the assessment, that's a good place to start. But I would also say to them it's an investment. It's an investment in yourself, and it's worth it. I think that I've come across many coaching programs, and oftentimes the price tag that comes with it can be a deterrent. But having processed that and thought about, you know, the investments that I've made in other areas that might look larger than this, or what I might continue to invest in over time, this program is worth every dollar that's attributed to it. And I say that because not only do you get an opportunity to go back and enjoy and refresh, the resources are there, and it's an investment in yourself. It's the best thing I have done for 2022 to help me on my journey. And I'm grateful. I'm really grateful.
Thank you for that. Yeah. And it is an investment. It's not,
you're welcome.
It's not inexpensive. And, I do think putting in perspective of the other things that we do invest in. And I think we're in a culture that says invest in education, invest in property, right? Like, even invest in clothes and shoes and things like that. But you do it dribs and drabs, so you don't realize how much you're spending. That it is sort of a different thing to say, you know what, I'm going to invest in myself in this way. And, part of the reason I have, the podcast and, these other talks and put things out on social media is because I do want for there to be resources for people who aren't ready to maybe make that commitment or investment yet, right? That they can get started, right? And Deslynne's mentioned there's, I have a self-love quiz, like what's your self-love style? You can find that on my website. That's a really good place to start. It's like, what's my relationship with myself like? And so I try to have a lot of, and that one's free too, a lot of things that sort of help people along the way. And then when people are ready for sort of a deeper level of work and investment and commitment, then this group coaching program is a great opportunity. And I'm so grateful that you feel like it has been worth your time, your energy, and your money.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I want. I want it to be useful. I'm not just trying to take people's money. That's not the game I'm in. So I'm just, go ahead.
And I would say that, that the investment is not what we all experienced. I say that for all the participants. We were all there, we engaged. The content is in the program. The content is in the material. And the price tag attached to it, for me, it's not an issue. I was able to just say, I'm going to do this. And it felt comfortable to do that as
I'm
well.
so glad to hear it. And, Deslynne, you were a joy to have in the group. As you all can hear, you have a soothing voice, you have a calming presence. And I think, the other group members, yes.
Therapist in me.
And, the other group members felt that as well. And so, that was the other thing. It's like everybody got the opportunity to be a blessing to someone else. And you were certainly a blessing to the group, a joy to have in the group. And I'm really grateful that you chose to participate, that, I feel honored that, despite, even with all of your training and your experience clinically, even with all of that, you still felt like you wanted to kind of go on this journey, and you allowed me to be a support and a guide on this journey. So I'm really grateful for that, grateful to know you, and just grateful that you have chosen to share your experience on the podcast with me.
Well, I appreciate it. I thank you for inviting me, and I will be forever grateful, I think, for being part of this process. And you're a blessing. This has been a blessing. So
okay. Thanks so much.